welcome everyone. Very interesting day today because yesterday it was Union Budget 2025 financial year के लिए आया था. 24 people are saying because calendar year 24 है. But interesting चीज ये भी हो जाती है budget के साथ कि markets are sitting at an all time high. And यहाँ पे बहुत लोगों के दिल में एक डर भी है कि a lot of sectors may have been overvalued. बहुत ही sharp rally recently we have witnessed, and a lot of people are confused. At one point they believe they don't want to miss out the great Indian growth story, and at the same time they feel ki which are the pockets where there is still some steam left. So we'll try to understand this from Shreyas sir. He has so kindly agreed to talk to us, and we'll discuss his views. So sir, first off, let's discuss the topic at hand, which is Union Budget. कल ही आया है, markets all time high पे हैं. तो what is your outlook on the budget vis-a-vis the market?
See, in this budget, there are two aspects. Normally, whenever budget comes, it has some economical aspects, it has some taxation related aspects, and obviously some political aspects. So, if you look at the economic aspect of this budget, then here the path to fiscal consolidation is really encouraging. So, we have projected what fiscal deficit is around 4.9% for 2025, and earlier interim budget it was 5.1, and from here they also highlighted that there is a path towards 4.5 and 4.1. So that path itself is encouraging, especially it gives credibility on stability of the currency. One, it also helps in crowding in of private sector capex. So if government is borrowing more, then private sector, the money don't go to the private sector or some other activities. While here government is borrowing less, so then the money is more available with the private sector. So that's how it can be construed indirectly. So I know that people are looking at the capex number, etc., but this is the indirect impact of consolidation on the fiscal deficit front, so that money is available with others to spend. And thirdly, it also helps in FII FDI flows, because again, as I talked about the currency stability. So this fiscal consolidation for me is a key takeaway from the budget, because this has one direct as well as indirect impact on the progression of the country. So that's how I would look at from the overall fiscal point of view. Again, there are some taxation changes which we can get into. Second point is on then the market and the valuation, obviously. Now, there were some increase in the taxes on the short-term, long-term front, and obviously it may or may not have its impact. Now, whether market want to construe it as a one-time activity or it is a direction that there is some number today, whether there will be another number tomorrow, that can be one of the concern for the market. But however, with these kind of numbers, at least whatever they have given in the budget when it comes to short-term tax, long-term capital gains tax, I think they are reasonable as of now. So it in itself doesn't warrant much concern. Again, as I said, whether we want to extrapolate or not, that's where I'm just trying to that's where the concern may be as such, if any. Then when it comes to overall market and valuations part, which you highlighted, definitely in the market, the valuations are very high on the B2B side, industrial side, and there, despite they being high even 1 year ago, there have been further inflation. And this is rightly so, and because it was backed always by the earning growth. Because always we keep on highlighting that yes, the other part of market, which is private sector bank, FMCG, and IT, there the valuations are not high. But it is the fact of the matter is their growth is single digit, barring maybe banks. So with the single digit growth, definitely it has its impact on the valuations, and that's where the valuations are low in these three pockets. While most of the industrials, and for that matter, even consumer discretionary valuations are high, though FMCG valuations are low because their growth is in single digit. But consumer discretionary has shown stupendous growth. There, the valuations are really high. So there are pockets where valuations are high, which is backed by higher growth, So in such a scenario, we call it as also a discovered theme. So it is discovered now. So there is nothing left for us to get surprised. So when the PE for anything goes up above 50, 60, then it obviously needs a continuous firepower to remain at that level, or earning upgrades. Either by way of earning upgrades or by way of some newer announcement, or announcement which suggests increase in TAM, that is total addressable market. So if there is no announcement around increase in total addressable market and there are no earning upgrades, then in such cases, the valuations which are upwards of 50, they become challenging. And that's where these pockets where rightly the valuations are high, backed by the relative earning growth, their absolute valuations are definitely high. While on the other hand, that's where you must have noticed in last 1 month or so, market has rotated. Again, it's too short a time to call out as a permanent journey. But at least in last 1 month or so, you must have observed that despite election result and all, many of the capital goods names are below their election peak, etc. And on the other hand, IT, despite just earning upgrade from 3 to 4%, has given you 20% return, and FMCG has given at least 10 to 15% return. So that kind of rotation you are observing within the market, and it is more driven by the relative valuations now.
Right, sir. So talking about some of the themes that have been running in the market specifically, already you covered quite a few, I think, but people that people are getting excited about, I think defense and power are two sectors where a lot of people have made some significant amount of money in their investments in the past few months, past few years, I can say, or months, I can say. And then from here on, people are also banking on a little bit on, rural sector, maybe agriculture sector to pick up steam a little bit from here. A few people are talking about textiles, maybe. So according to you, which are the sectors which have some steam and are worthy of looking into investments? If you could get one level down into it as well, a slightly more detailed discussion.
So definitely, you started with power, and power definitely is a multi-year story. So every month after month, you must be noticing that there is a growth in power consumption, and this supply is not catching up with it. Because of that, there is going to be concern over power availability, sufficient power availability. And then again, there is one more angle to it, is shift to renewable power. So both these aspects, not only in India but worldwide, is driving power sector capex story, and that is expected to continue for multiple years. There is one more element, especially in US and other Western world, that the existing assets are old and they need to be replaced. So there are multiple themes. One is replacement, other is because of say data centers, AI, and shift to clean energy. So instead of petrol, you are going to use electric vehicle. So because of all these things, the power demand is expected to increase. And then renewable energy, that also adds to another set of power requirement. So definitely power as a theme is going to last for a long time. Here it is just about the valuations. I think barring valuations, where one need to really be watchful of these themes overall. Because I don't think year market will give up on this thing for a long time to come. Then when it comes to defense, again the same thing. In case of defense, what we have observed is even in budget. So if you notice, this time around, government in its speech, finance minister talked about power. Actually, this time around, unlike many other budgets earlier, there was no mention of railway. I'm not saying they're not spending, but they're spending. But then there is a reason why someone talks about only power, while earlier budgets, railway always has been the mention, defense has been the mention, but despite that, the power was a mention. Because again, there is a realization that yes, we cannot just bypass coal. and that's where the mention was around that coal based power. So we cannot bypass, because the power growth or power demand is going to be so huge that it cannot be made by fully by renewables and focus on renewables. So that also tells you the enormity of this, and that's where the power definitely is a story. In case when it comes to defense, again, it is a global one. There is a trend toward globally towards self-sufficiency and relying lesser on the imports. Again, it is easier said than done, but there is a thought already in most of the countries' mind. Actually, with the recent certain comments from the US side on the NATO front, there were some articles around whether the NATO countries also need to look into the defense as well. And again, these are at this stage, it is at a narrative level and not substantial. There's nothing substantial behind it. But point is, the way geopolitics is evolving, definitely there is a trend towards self-sufficiency, and all countries are looking forward to that. Now, when it comes to India, and particularly since we are discussing around budget, so capex growth in case of in case of defense allotment, there the allotment is around 9% higher YoY. In case of defense, but then in my opinion, this is going to increase, and this is both revenue plus so this is about capex expenditure, which has grown by almost 9% YoY. Revenue expenditure anyway that keep on shrinking somewhat. So this defense is going to stay for long. Again, coming back to the valuations part, that valuations are leaves less to be left on table to make money. So on corrections, definitely one need to look at into this theme as well. You spoke about after these other which theme? Sorry, you just mentioned about.
Textile, some people have agriculture and
Textiles.
textiles.
Oh, sure. Now, when it comes to textile, the textile is mostly around around. So there is a duty benefit which is given to some of the countries. So we don't have it when it comes to Europe, especially, and expectations are around that. In that case, so it is more, I would call it as an event per se, because textile as an industry is existing in India for long. So there is nothing new in this. So we are being great in, because we are one of the large cotton producing country. We have been having our yarn industry, which is developed. We have been having our fabric industry also. While we don't have as big a apparel industry as say Bangladesh or some other worlds, but when it, because that is very employment intensive, while these two part, which is more because of the cotton, these two part, I think we have been one of the largest producer of this, and that's where you may be aware that when it comes to exports of cotton towel as well as cotton, because obviously the towels are cotton based, and bed sheets, most of them, and that's where when it comes to exports of these two items, India has been having very high market share globally, especially in the US, always. So that's why I'm saying this is nothing new. This has been there for some time. The delta here can be because of change in the bilateral treaty, especially with the Europe, and that's where the textile per se comes into picture. When it comes to agriculture, especially when from budget point of view or otherwise as well, there are certain announcement. It has been. But agriculture is mostly about, if you see, go back in the cycle, 2000, last year, last decade's first part, when agri did well, it was to do with the inflation in the crop prices. So inflation in the crop prices is actually the always is the bigger story, because that has a disproportionate and faster impact on the agriculture rather than any schemes and such things per se. So when it comes to agriculture, definitely I would rather focus on the inflation in the food prices as such. So this time around, coming specific to the budget, then fertilizer subsidy was maintained, and it was unchanged from the interim budget. So that is, from the fertilizer point of view, it is neutral. Then there was a reduction in the basic custom duty on shrimp and fish feed, and that is the input used in manufacturing, and so that also should be positive. But these things are incremental in a sense, so it doesn't have a big impact as such.
Right. Right. So next up, I wanted to ask about this. There's also another significant announcement in the budget, which is around LTCG, which has been increased to 12.5%. Due to which I think a lot of realty stocks were also hit yesterday and right after the announcement. But otherwise, also I think that has a lot of impact on the stock markets as well. So would love to understand from your viewpoint how would it play out in the coming weeks or months as per you?
See, coming specific to the real estate, so rationalization of long-term capital gains on the real estate. So there is an indexation benefit which is removed, and tax rate is at the same time reduced to 12.5% from 20%.
Yeah.
So and grandfathering of properties is held before 2001. So here I think it will be having a limited impact on buyer who purchase home for personal consumption, while investors would be worse off under new regime in case of lower underlying appreciation. So if your underlying appreciation is less than 10% on an average, then obviously it doesn't help, because then you are giving a part of it by way of tax, and then you will compare the returns versus FD or any other asset class. And if your holding period is going to be short term, but generally real estate holding period is at least 2 years. That's broadly is the case. So in that case, this I don't think have much impact. At the same time, government will also encourage states to lower stamp duty. That was a comment which was being made, and that was actually out of turn, because state stamp duty is a state subject, and they have commented in the budget. FMS commented in the budget that we encourage states to lower the stamp duty, while also considering lower duties for women buyers. So these were the two comments. So this definitely, if you go back during the COVID times, I think some of the states, I think Maharashtra gave the stamp duty benefit as such. So some of the states did it at that time, and that definitely is a good Kickstarter for the real estate per se. Then there is on the other part, which is the PMAY, that is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Their allocation is around 30,000 crore, and that also is continuing. And so these are the few aspects when it comes to real estate. So I don't think it will have a big impact per se, considering this nitty-gritties of it.
Right. Great to know, sir. So next up, I think another great theme of this budget was around youth empowerment, skilling, and providing them with some direct benefit transfers as well. So I would love to understand from you, how can retail investors play this theme in the markets?
That part, actually, if you look at that both youth and skilling, they are not directly once. There can be one or two companies which someone may highlight. Here, government has budgeted around 10,000 crore in incentive for FY25. Then they have told top 500 companies to, not told in a sense, there are some benefits for them for hiring freshers, etc. There can be, again, when it comes to these things, definitely whoever is the intermediary. So it can be intermediary, can be someone who is provider of the database, or someone who is provider of or whoever his consultant, so to say, in between. So that's maybe the beneficiary when you look at what is available in the listed space per se. So that could be one of the part, but most important part of is not this most important, because we generally tend to focus only on the stocks and individual names. Point is that this will drive more employment and consumption. So I would rather call it out as good for consumption on a wider scale, rather than just trying to focus on who is the near-term beneficiary of this.
Right, right. And sir, finally, I would ask you, what are maybe the top three, although you covered it in brief in the beginning itself, but maybe what are the top three sectors that you would be bullish on because of this budget, or not because of this budget, otherwise as well, that you'd be looking out for?
See, budget per se, there is, I don't think, barring probably the fiscal path, which there has been multiple debate before the budget around whether government will do more populism, etc. Overall, it looks like that the fiscal path is followed, and that's where always thing which goes in favor of India, or which has been going in favor of India in last few years, is control over twin deficit, current account deficit, fiscal deficit, and because of his macro is good. So any FII or anyone looking at India always focus on the macros, most of them before the currency stability. So macro good, that would continue to remain with this kind of budget. So now when it comes to the individual themes, I think when you look at the themes from the earning growth point of view, I don't think there is change in the expectation of the earning growth trajectory of the underlying themes. Maybe it B2B or capex led, or it may be the consumption led. Only point I just wanted to leave with you is, because of relative risk reward, because of relative valuation differential, one tend to look forward more towards some the sectors and names which have not seen very high appreciation in their valuation multiples. So in that context, it is the private sector bank, it is the FMCG, and it is IT which comes to our mind. While the earning growth remains, but that is known and that is in price. So there one need to wait for some corrections as such.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Sir, finally, before we conclude, if we can have from you one final parting advice for our viewers out there.
See, when it comes to all these events like budgets, etc., so definitely it becomes topical at that point in time. But when it comes to overall longer term growth and asset creation and wealth creation per se, such things have relatively limited impact, more so. So one need to focus on the macro, one need to focus on bottom up and the individual stocks and the segments. And India, actually, the way the macro is emerging, definitely we have a very long-term path for growth. So it's not right to write off any particular segment in the market, because the total addressable market is very high. And you have seen these rotations which are happening in the market, right, primarily for the same reason. You cannot write off something. So IT also came up beyond the point. So you cannot write off something. End of the day, we have potential, and there is good total addressable market.
Great, sir. Well, this was definitely a very insightful session, sir. I hope you'll allow us to interview again and learn more from you.
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your time.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all related documents carefully before investing.